The courtroom buzzed with whispers and the subtle rustle of papers as Karoline Leavitt stepped through the grand wooden doors. Her navy blue suit was pressed perfectly, but it did little to disguise the fact that she was barely past 25. She walked with purpose, each step echoing against the marble floor. Eyes followed her, some curious, some doubtful, others dismissive. Judge Nathan Harrow, sitting high on the bench with a look of supreme detachment, glanced up from his notes and gave a slight, audible chuckle. "Miss Leavitt, I presume," he said, his voice thick with condescension. "First trial?" Karoline didn't flinch. Her grip on her leather-bound briefcase tightened, but her eyes met his steadily. "No, Your Honor," she replied. "Though I appreciate your concern." A few laughs sprinkled through the courtroom. The prosecutor, Elliot Vance, impeccably dressed and known for his theatrics, smirked as he shuffled his notes. Karoline took her seat beside Maya Trent, her client. A single mother, former systems analyst, and the woman accused of siphoning over $3 million from Halcyon Corporation. Maya's hands trembled slightly, and her eyes darted toward Karoline with equal parts fear and hope. The trial began with routine procedure, but the tone was anything but routine. Karoline's objections were overruled with a wave. Her attempts to redirect witnesses were interrupted. Judge Harrow rarely looked up when she spoke, instead fiddling with his pen or exchanging knowing glances with Vance. To the courtroom, she was the lamb among lions. But Karoline wasn't here to impress. She was here for the truth. That night, in the stillness of her small apartment-turned-office, Karoline spread the case files across her living room floor. Sticky notes covered every wall. She pored over thousands of documents, old company emails, server logs, security protocols. She barely ate. Sleep became a luxury. Her only companion was the relentless ticking of the clock. And then she saw it, a line of code in an obscure report, a pattern of dummy accounts activated precisely when Maya was on maternity leave. It was a digital ghost trail. Impossible for her to have executed. Her heart pounded. She double-checked the timestamps, employee badge logs, and remote login locations. The data corroborated what she feared: someone had used Maya's credentials, but not from Maya's device or network. She began tracing IP addresses and metadata. A pattern emerged. Whoever had done this was smart. Very smart. But not as careful as they thought. Back in court, Karoline called the company's IT manager. She stood tall before the jury and drew a detailed timeline on the board. She linked each transaction with specific dates and times. Her voice, once tentative, now carried a quiet authority. She cross-examined the financial director, catching him in contradictions. Judge Harrow rolled his eyes. Vance sneered, tossing out lines like, "We're not here for a TED Talk, Miss Leavitt." But the jury listened. Karoline used each evening to dig deeper. She discovered that Halcyon Corp had undergone a secret audit the year before, buried deep in quarterly filings. The auditor's notes hinted at irregularities but were dismissed by senior executives. She visited the auditor, a woman named Joyce Llewellyn, at her home 2 towns over. Joyce was hesitant at first, wary of breaking confidentiality. But Karoline's sincerity won her over. Over cups of black coffee and the soft chirping of cicadas, Joyce spoke. She had flagged multiple anomalies, including cloned logins and unusually timed transfers. Her warnings were buried. She was pushed into early retirement soon after. Armed with this information, Karoline returned to court. She filed a motion to subpoena Halcyon Corp's internal security footage from 2 years prior. Judge Harrow looked up, genuinely surprised. "Surely you're not serious," he said, squinting over his glasses. "I am, Your Honor," Karoline said. Calm. Unwavering. The footage arrived. Grainy but clear enough. The courtroom darkened as the lights dimmed. Karoline played the segment, late night, nearly midnight. A man entered Maya's terminal using her ID. He typed swiftly, confidently. Then he left. Karoline paused the video. She displayed a high-resolution image from a company gala next to the screen. Same build. Same gait. The CFO. Gasps echoed. Vance leaped to his feet. Objection, irrelevant, speculative. Sit down, Mr. Vance, Hero said, his voice sharper than before. For the first time, the courtroom leaned forward. Karoline continued, layering emails, text messages, and financial logs into a seamless narrative. She painted a picture of a corporate machine willing to sacrifice an innocent woman to cover internal fraud. She introduced a secondary witness, a former intern, who confirmed that Maya's ID had been cloned, a common practice for high-level employees trying to cover tracks. The intern shared chilling insights, like how they were instructed to ignore certain alerts and never question activity from executive terminals. Then came Karoline's closing argument. She didn't speak like a lawyer. She spoke like a daughter, a woman, a fighter. She spoke of Maya's dedication, her child's heart surgery, her 4 a.m. commutes, the nights Maya skipped meals to afford daycare. Karoline's voice wavered with emotion. This isn't just about evidence. It's about dignity. About the truth lost in the shadows of power. She ended with a quote from her father, "The law is a sword, Karoline. But only those who dare to wield it with purpose can turn it into justice." The room was still. Not even Judge Hero moved. The jury deliberated for only 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood, hands trembling. "We find the defendant, Maya Trent, not guilty on all counts." Maya broke down in tears. Karoline held her close. Judge Hero cleared his throat. "Miss Leavitt," he said. "I'll admit, I underestimated you. You've reminded this court that genius sometimes wears a new face." Outside the courtroom, a wall of reporters waited. Microphones. Flashing lights. Questions. Karoline gave one brief statement: this case wasn't about winning. It was about restoring a life. Vance disappeared into a waiting car. Halcyon Corp issued a vague statement the next day about conducting an internal review. Karoline didn't care. She had her truth. Later that week, a letter arrived. No return address. Just a name at the bottom. "I watched. I'm proud. Let's talk. Dad." Karoline folded the letter and placed it in her briefcase. Her hands shook just slightly as she did. The words felt like warmth spreading across old, frozen scars. She walked out of her office and into the chilled dusk. Her phone buzzed, a new case inquiry. A young man wrongfully evicted by a gentrifying landlord. She looked at the screen for a moment and then answered. "This is Karoline Leavitt. How can I help you?" There were more cases to fight, more lives to defend. Each one was a thread in the tapestry of justice she was beginning to weave. She turned off her office light and stepped into the evening breeze, her heart filled not just with victory, but with purpose. This wasn't just a win. It was the beginning of something greater.